In the heart of Texas, the summer of 2025 was supposed to be filled with sunshine and laughter, a time for making memories that would last a lifetime. The air was thick with anticipation, the promise of carefree days hanging heavy in the humid air. At Camp Mystic, a historic girls' camp nestled along the banks of the Guadalupe River. For generations, it had been a sanctuary, a place where young women could connect with nature, forge lifelong friendships, and discover their inner strength. But everything changed when unprecedented storms hit, rolling in with a ferocity that no one could have predicted. The sky turned an ominous shade of gray, and the air crackled with an unsettling energy, turning the gentle river into a deadly torrent. What was once a source of recreation and tranquility became a raging monster, its waters rising with alarming speed and power. The river rose 26 feet in just 45 minutes, a terrifying display of nature's raw power. The speed of the rise left little time for warning, turning a peaceful summer day into a desperate fight for survival. Overwhelming the camp and sweeping away cabins, the structures that had housed countless memories now succumbed to the relentless force of the water. Trees, ancient sentinels of the forest, were uprooted and tossed about like mere twigs, adding to the chaos and destruction. And tragically, people. The unthinkable had happened, and lives were lost in the blink of an eye, leaving a void that could never be filled. News of the disaster spread quickly, carried by frantic phone calls and urgent news alerts, painting a grim picture of the unfolding tragedy, leaving parents desperate for updates, clinging to hope as they waited for any sign that their children were safe. The agonizing wait stretched on, each moment feeling like an eternity. And emergency crews scrambling in dangerous conditions, risking their own lives to rescue those trapped by the floodwaters. Camp Mystic, preparing for its 100th anniversary, a milestone celebration of its rich history and enduring legacy, was left in ruins, a heartbreaking scene of devastation that defied comprehension. Its legacy shattered by the flood. The once vibrant and thriving camp was now a ghost of its former self, submerged beneath the murky waters. The loss of property was nothing compared to the loss of life, the irreplaceable absence of those who had called Camp Mystic home. As the community mourned campers, their bright futures tragically cut short, their laughter silenced forever. And staff. The counselors and mentors who had dedicated their lives to shaping young minds were now remembered with profound sorrow. Stories of heroism emerged, tales of bravery and selflessness amidst the chaos, shining a light in the darkest of times. But so did deep grief, a collective sorrow that permeated the entire community, binding them together in their shared loss. As the waters receded, the devastation became clear, revealing the full extent of the damage and the long road to recovery that lay ahead. And the nation watched in shock, grappling with the magnitude of the tragedy and the profound impact it would have on the lives of so many. Yet, as the community came together in mourning, finding solace in shared memories and offering support to one another, a new controversy began to surface. A simmering tension that had long been hidden beneath the surface, now threatening to erupt, one that would force difficult conversations about race, privilege, and tragedy in America, challenging long-held beliefs and forcing a reckoning with uncomfortable truths. The flood was only the beginning of a much larger reckoning, a societal earthquake that would shake the foundations of the community and the nation. The Texas floods were a devastating event, leaving an indelible mark on the state's history. The sheer force of nature unleashed that day claimed nearly 70 lives, a tragic loss that reverberated across communities. Among the hardest-hit areas was Kerr County, home to the beloved Camp Mystic, suffering the greatest loss of life. The idyllic landscape, usually a haven for summer adventures, became a scene of unimaginable devastation. The flood claimed 43 lives in Kerr County alone, a staggering number that underscored the magnitude of the disaster. Each cross erected served as a somber reminder of the lives cut short. Tragically, the victims included 15 children, their futures washed away in the torrent. The loss of these young lives added an unbearable weight to the community's grief, a pain that would linger for years to come. Camp Mystic, usually filled with laughter and the joyful sounds of summer, was at full capacity when the flood struck with terrifying speed. The serene environment was instantly transformed into a chaotic nightmare. Panic and chaos erupted as the water surged without warning, sweeping through the camp with relentless force. The suddenness of the deluge left little time for escape, creating a desperate struggle for survival. Among the victims was Dick Eastland, a co-owner of Camp Mystic, a man deeply committed to the safety and well-being of the children under his care. He died a hero, trying to save as many campers as possible, selflessly putting their lives before his own, a testament to his character and dedication. His sacrifice became a symbol of the extraordinary bravery shown that day, a beacon of hope amidst the devastation. His actions and those of others would be remembered as acts of true heroism. The agonizing search for missing children gripped the nation, as families and communities held on to hope against dwindling odds. Every moment felt like an eternity. Volunteers and officials worked tirelessly, combing the riverbanks for days, driven by a desperate desire to bring closure to grieving families. The landscape was unforgiving, but their determination remained unwavering. Each confirmed loss sent new waves of grief through the community, shattering the fragile sense of hope that remained. The weight of sorrow was palpable, a heavy burden shared by all. The tragedy was not just a local event confined to Kerr County. Its impact resonated far beyond, touching the hearts of people across the state and the nation. It became a collective wound for Texas and beyond, a shared experience of loss and mourning that united people in their grief. The state flag flew at half-mast, a symbol of respect and remembrance. In the immediate aftermath, an outpouring of support poured in from all corners, a testament to the human capacity for compassion and generosity. Food, clothing, funds, and essential supplies flooded into the affected areas, providing much-needed relief to those who had lost everything. Counseling services were established to provide support for survivors and families struggling to cope with the trauma and grief. The emotional scars of the flood would run deep. Churches opened their doors, offering sanctuary and a place for the community to gather, pray, and find solace in their shared faith. Neighbors rallied together, helping each other rebuild their lives and offering comfort in the face of unimaginable loss. The bonds of community were strengthened in the crucible of tragedy. The outpouring of compassion showed the remarkable strength of community, demonstrating the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming loss. Solemn candlelight vigils were held, bringing people together to mourn the victims and offer support to the grieving families, a powerful symbol of unity and remembrance. But even as the state mourned and began the long process of healing, a new controversy threatened to overshadow the unity and support that had emerged in the wake of the disaster. A divisive issue was brewing, threatening to fracture the community and undermine the collective effort to rebuild and recover. The seeds of discord were being sown. The flood's aftermath would soon be complicated by a complex web of social and political issues, adding another layer of challenge to an already difficult situation. A divisive debate that no one saw coming was about to erupt, threatening to tear apart the fragile bonds of community and reignite old wounds. Grief and solidarity were about to collide head-on with a national conversation on race, adding a layer of complexity and tension to the already fraught situation. The road to recovery would be long and arduous. As Texas mourned, a new storm erupted online. Sade Perkins, a former Houston Food Insecurity Board appointee, posted a TikTok video that went viral, shifting the focus from the tragedy to the camp's racial makeup. Perkins called Camp Mystic a whites-only girls' Christian camp, claiming it lacked any diversity and using the phrase, "If you ain't white, you ain't right." Her comments, made while families were still searching for missing children, sparked outrage and debate. Many saw her timing as deeply insensitive, accusing her of politicizing tragedy. Yet the video also forced a new question. Should issues of race and privilege be discussed even in the midst of disaster? The digital firestorm quickly spilled into mainstream news, making Perkins' critique a national flashpoint. The conversation was no longer just about the flood, it was about who gets to grieve and why. To understand the backlash, we need to look at Perkins's core message. She argued that the nation's outpouring of grief was shaped by the fact that the victims were mostly white, suggesting a double standard in how tragedies are mourned. Perkins compared the attention given to Camp Mystic to the lack of concern for children of color in other crises, like those in ICE detention. Her point: systemic racism shapes which tragedies get national sympathy. By calling out Camp Mystic as an exclusive, racially segregated space, she aimed to provoke uncomfortable but necessary reflection. For Perkins, there's never a right time to talk about injustice, because the harm is constant. Her video became a flashpoint in the ongoing struggle over race, empathy, and justice in America. Camp Mystic's history is key to the controversy. Founded nearly a century ago, it's long been a summer tradition for Texas's affluent, mostly white families, with alumni including governors' daughters and even Laura Bush. While not officially segregated, its culture and networks have kept it predominantly white, fueling claims of exclusivity. The camp's riverside setting made it both idyllic and vulnerable to disaster. For many, its destruction was deeply personal, a loss of cherished memories and tradition. The sudden flood turned a place of joy into a scene of terror, erasing nearly 100 years of history in minutes. This context explains why the debate over race and privilege became so charged. The response to Perkins's video was swift and harsh, especially from Houston officials. Mayor John Whitmire condemned her remarks as deeply inappropriate, emphasizing the pain families were enduring. He announced Perkins would be removed from the Food Insecurity Board, making her the center of a political firestorm. The city's actions sent a clear message. Public officials must show compassion, not division, in times of crisis. Social media exploded with outrage, accusing Perkins of exploiting tragedy for political gain. Many insisted the focus should remain on rescue and mourning, not social commentary. The backlash was intense, with critics calling her tone and timing callous. Perkins's removal became a national story about the limits of public discourse during tragedy. The incident showed how quickly social media can turn a personal opinion into real-world consequences. Critics saw Perkins's comments as profoundly insensitive, arguing that tragedy should unite, not divide. They believed the focus should be on empathy and support, not on the camp's racial makeup. Many felt her whites-only label was exaggerated and unfair, especially as the camp's director died trying to save children. For these voices, the flood was a human tragedy, not a lesson in racial politics. They accused Perkins of using the disaster to push divisive identity politics, judging victims by race rather than shared humanity. Some argued that true equality means mourning all lives equally, without politicizing grief. The relentless politicization of tragedy, they said, only deepens divisions. For them, compassion, not critique, should be the first response to suffering. The call was for basic decency and unity in the face of loss. Despite the intense backlash and the wave of criticism directed her way, Perkins found strong support from those who saw her message as not only valid, but absolutely necessary for societal progress. These individuals recognized the importance of her perspective and rallied to her defense. Supporters passionately argued that there's never a truly right time or convenient moment to address the deeply entrenched issue of systemic racism. They believed that delaying the conversation only served to perpetuate the problem. Furthermore, they contended that ignoring the camp's inherent exclusivity and the implications of that exclusivity would be a disservice to the pursuit of truth and a failure to acknowledge the realities of privilege. They pointed to the glaring double standard often present in media attention, highlighting the disparities in coverage when tragedies affect minority communities compared to others. The supporters emphasized the need for equal attention and empathy for tragedies affecting minority communities, arguing that their pain and suffering should not be minimized or overlooked. For them, Perkins was not engaging in cruelty or insensitivity. Rather, she was bravely exposing uncomfortable realities about privilege, economic disparity, and the selective empathy that dictates who is perceived as a worthy victim in the eyes of society. Camp Mystic, in their eyes, represented more than just a summer getaway. It symbolized the perpetuation of generational wealth, the concentration of resources, and the systemic exclusion of those without access to such opportunities. Critiquing the camp, therefore, was not intended as a personal attack on the children who attended, but as a necessary critique of the underlying systems and structures that perpetuate inequality and limit opportunities for marginalized communities. Many within her support network saw the intense backlash as a deliberate attempt to silence a Black woman, specifically for daring to challenge the established status quo and question the distribution of power and privilege. Defending Perkins in this context transcended the individual and became about defending the fundamental right to speak truth to power, regardless of the potential consequences, even when that truth is uncomfortable, inconvenient, or challenges deeply held beliefs. To her unwavering supporters, Perkins was not just an activist. She was a courageous voice bravely initiating a necessary conversation, a dialogue that was long overdue and essential for fostering a more just and equitable society. The Texas floods and the controversy that followed force us to confront hard questions. How do we mourn tragedy while also facing the social issues it exposes? Sade Perkins' video showed how quickly a personal opinion can spark national debate and pain. The challenge is to balance comfort with critique, especially in times of grief. We must ask ourselves, can we extend compassion to all, regardless of background, and value every story equally? Healing requires both unity and the courage to address inequality. The flood washed away more than cabins. It exposed the complexity of grief, race, and justice in America. Moving forward means honoring both loss and the need for change, striving for a society where every life is mourned and every injustice confronted.